welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I want to start by answering a question today because a few people have asked me the question of what if your hands don't fit well on a recorder? What if your hands are short and they slip off the holes? How can you know that a recorder is the right size for you? You know, you may be having a problem in getting your fingers to stay on it. You may be having a problem in feeling the holes. So I'm really glad that I have that question to answer because it is an issue for a lot of people. If you're elderly or if you have a medical problem and you can't feel the holes, then you kind of have to go by memory. So I just want to review with you some tips and talk to you about the way that the recorders are set up and also the penny whistles and the sasutos so that you know what you have to adjust to and how to adjust to the various sizes of the instrument, the mouthpieces of the instrument. You have an issue of the size of your hands and how comfortable they are on an instrument. But it's not just the length of the fingers that you have to deal with. It's the spacing between the fingers. Are you able to stretch the fingers so that you get enough width between them to play the larger instruments? Do you have enough sense of feeling so when you put your fingers on an instrument, you can feel where the tone holes are? Because they're all indented a little bit. So remember, when you pick up an instrument to play, you're not going to look at yourself playing. If you move your head and the instrument is in your mouth, then of course the instrument moves too. So you can't watch yourself playing. And I hope you will never pick up that terribly bad habit of looking in a mirror to see if you have the fingerings right. A mirror reverses the image and you can get into a lot of trouble and a lot of bad habits. So please don't ever look in a mirror. When you pick up an instrument, you should be able to feel where the holes are because they're indented. And you can find out where your fingers are supposed to be and your thumb also on the thumb hole by picking up an instrument and just feeling where the holes are. Now, if you're new to playing and you haven't played before, then obviously you're going to be looking to see whether your fingers are on the right spot. I expect my beginning students always to do that for whatever instrument that I'm teaching them on. But after a while, you get comfortable with an instrument, you pick it up, you put it to your mouth, you put your hands on it, and you don't even question where your fingers go because it seems to be all natural. The way to pick an instrument that's the right size for you is that when you go into a store, any reputable music store will have recorders and recorder-like instruments or penny whistles. What you need to do, if they allow it, is pick up an instrument and hold it and see if it feels natural. Can you feel the holes underneath your fingers? Can you put your thumb right on the back where it's supposed to be? Does it seem comfortable? And after you've made your choice and you bought an instrument, you should play it and play it regularly and play it often until it becomes so natural that you can just pick it up and play it. But there are adjustments that you have to make, so I thought today I'd do a little comparing of the instruments so you can see just how much difference there is between the way the holes are spaced, where the thumb hole is, the size of the instrument, and remember you also have to adjust to the size of the mouthpiece because that involves your embouchure, so there's a lot of adjusting to do. When I play often. I play many instruments, and I'm oftentimes switching off. I go from one instrument to another instrument, sometimes while I'm playing the same song. I'll just put an instrument down and pick up another instrument because the tone will be a little different. I think it'll blend a little better, and I just do that. It's just not a problem for me, but I am so familiar with the instruments. I pick them up, and I put them down, and I play them, and I put down another one, and I pick up another one, and it's just not a problem for me. Once you're familiar with an instrument, you can buy other instruments, but get familiar with them one at a time so you don't have to be, rushing around looking, is this right, is that right? If you're doing a performance, if you're playing in a band, it looks a little odd to pick up an instrument and then look at it and say, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be fingered. You know, it should be natural. So you buy one instrument at a time, you play one instrument at a time, you become familiar with it, and then you just pick it up and it's natural to do. I know I have a whole host of instruments and I just want to show you some here. This is a C melody flute. It was made in Germany. It's made out of wood. This is a C melody flute. It's plastic, made by another company, also made overseas. It's Japanese. I'm going to put them together. Now the music is actually made on the top part of the instrument where you have the mouthpiece, the labium, and so forth. So I'll join them together. I'll hold them at the bottom and join them together. And you should be able to see there's a difference in the placement of the holes. So when you're going from one instrument to the other, if these were the two that you're playing, even though they're in the same key, even though they're the same kind of instrument, the holes are not placed together. Now I'm going to do the same and you'll see the difference in the thumb holes. Here again, I'll put the tops together, hold them on the bottom. I hope I have it right because I can't see what you're seeing. See the difference of where the thumb holes are. If I were to switch from one instrument to the other, pick one up, put one down, I would have to immediately be able to put my hands in the right spot. And I've done that without even looking at it. But that's because I'm familiar with it. Familiarity is the key to be able to know where the notes are placed, where the tone holes are placed. You can feel it. But in different instruments, they will be placed in a little different position. So you have to be familiar enough if you're going to put one down and pick one up so that you can learn where it is. Now I have some others to show you. These are beautiful instruments, both American made. If I put them together, one beside the other, keeping the mouthpieces together, you'll see there is a difference in the tone holes and where they're placed. Let me take and turn them around and do the same thing. It doesn't have to be off by much to throw you off. You know, it doesn't have to be off by much at all. So let me put them together. You can see they're about the same length, but you see the tone holes are different. One is higher than the other. So if you take one down and pick one up, you would have to be used to the fact that the positions of the holes are different. Now, I want to show you this little guy. This is a very, very interesting and very lovely instrument. This just happens to be a little Peruvian flute. And it does play. It's lovely color, lovely design. Most of the Peruvian flutes I have several of them, do not have a tone hole in the back, but this one does. So where is it? It's right here. This is a very unusual place for a tone hole. Your natural tendency, if like you are holding a cup or something, you hold your hands out and you have an opposed thumb, and the thumb is usually opposite where your index finger will be. That's the way it usually falls. And that's the way it usually falls on an instrument that has a tone hole or a thumb hole in the back. The thumb hole is usually, well, let me take this back again so I can show you. The thumb hole is usually where it would normally be if you were holding a cup, right opposite the index finger. My thumb is on that tone hole. My index finger is on the first note of the instrument. They're opposite each other, and that's the way they usually come, and that's the natural way to hold anything. But when we look at this little Peruvian flute, I've got to put my hands down here, because that's where the tone holes are, and lift my thumb quite a bit above the index finger to hit that thumb hole. That's an unnatural way to hold an instrument, or an unnatural way to hold anything, but that's what I have to do because that's where it's been placed. Now, if they put it in a different place, it might change the whole pitch of the instrument. It might change it. So I have, if I'm playing this regularly, automatically shift my thumb up without thinking about it. Normally you can feel where they are. Now, if you have a medical problem and you're not able to feel well in your thumb or in your fingers, then that's an issue. You have to kind of memorize where it is and then go for it. I can remember once, for some reason, I was playing a solo and I could not feel the holes at all. And I just did it by memory, and I hit every note right. But I did it because I knew where the holes were. Even for some reason at that particular performance, I couldn't feel it. Now, you also have to adjust to different types of mouthpieces. Let me show you. These are interesting. I'll take them one at a time. This is a little sassuto. It's called a low D sassuto. And it has a finger stretch that's almost unimaginable. It's very, very hard to play it, not because it's hard to get air in it. It's not hard. It plays very easily. But the finger stretches are enormous. Now, when I bought this, just to show you what the tone is like, when I bought this, a note came with it, and they said, Pat, try it for a few days. If you find that it's just impossible to play, send it back, and we'll return your money. Well, when I get an instrument, it's for keeps, because I love instruments and I collect them. And if I have an instrument and I bought it, it's mine, and I'm going to always keep it and take care of it. But I can't play a whole scale like I should, because I can get these first two notes. It's such a stretch for the third one. And with these instruments, if you don't have your finger exactly where it's supposed to be, you don't get the note. You might get another note, you might squeak, you might squeal, it may be fuzzy, but it's very hard to do. I did get it, but it's hard to get it. And then afterwards, your fingers may be sore. Now, the same thing would be true of this little penny whistle. This is a low D penny whistle. They're both in the same key, but look at the difference in their size. They both play low D music. When you play the scale on them, they sound pretty much the same. But you can see quite a difference here. And when you look, you can see quite a difference as to where the thumb hole starts. So let me get this toward the top, because I want you to look at this. And you can see where the thumb hole, and where the notes start, where the holes are. There's quite a difference in their size and where they start. This one is actually easier to play than the other one, but they're going to sound the same. They're both low D. This happens to be a penny whistle. But here again, the big, big stretch. So having long fingers usually is considered to be an advantage, especially if you're playing a keyboard and a lot of other instruments. But what people don't consider is the fact that there has to be a stretch between the fingers, and that makes a big, big difference as to what you can do. These two fingers, fine, but this, almost impossible to hit. So I love the instruments, and I do play them, but I don't play them a lot because I can only play certain notes and be sure of them. This is a low D penny whistle. The other one was a low D sassuto. You have to be aware of the fact, and let me show you this. There's such a thing as an instrument being too small if you have very big fingers, very large fingers. This is a sassuto. I'm sorry, this is a sopranino. It is the smallest recorder made in the key of F. And you can see that when I put down my fingers on these tone holes, the fingers practically touch. But the thumb hole is no problem. It's in the usual position right across from the index finger. And it's not hard to play. Generally speaking, the smaller the hands, the smaller the instrument that you should start out on. Okay, now, if you want to compare this, and let me take my bass. This is one of the largest of the recorders. They do have larger basses, But this is as far as large enough for me. But look at the difference. They're both in the key of F. They're both in the recorder family. And look at the difference. In the mouthpieces, let me turn it this way. I mean, it's like Mutt and Jeff, you know. What a difference. And you have to get used to it. If you're going to take a big instrument and play it, your mouth has to be used to a change in your embouchure when you put it up to your lips, because it is quite different. Now, I don't have to. The advantage of the bass is easier to play than some of the other instruments that have a wide finger stretch, because it has keys. I press my hand here. I don't have to put my finger down here. There's no way I could reach it. I have a key. All I do is press the key and the instrument does it for me. The same here. So actually the finger stretch on the bass is less troublesome than the finger stretch on other instruments. And the tone hole in the back is very close to where the index finger is. It's a little bit higher, but not much. And it's very natural to play this. What you might have to be careful of and adjust to is the change in the size of the mouthpiece, which means that your embouchure is going to change with the size of the mouthpiece. I want to show you another one in comparison to the bass. This is my tenor. This is a little angel tenor. Quite a difference. Let me turn it this way. Quite a difference in the size of the mouthpiece. Let me turn it sideways. That might be the easier way to catch it. There's quite a difference there. But the tenor is harder to play than the bass, even though the bass is bigger. And the reason is that the tenor does not have the keys that the bass has. Here you have the tenor. There is a key on it, but it's way down here for the last note, because you never would be able to stretch your finger for the last note. But the finger stretches between are very hard to get sometimes, and yet it's a very beautiful instrument to play. I played this in a Renaissance concert, and a man came up to me. It was all recorded. We had a whole concert playing Renaissance music, and this was the only instrument I brought. It was the only instrument I played, and it's a tenor, it's in the key of C, and a man came up to me and said, "This is quite possibly the most beautiful instrument I have ever heard." And he was referring to this angel tenor. It has a wonderful voice. Now, some of the recorders, especially the wooden ones, are actually voiced. They voice them. And this does sound a little bit like a tenor, like a human being was singing. And with the wooden ones, when they voice them, once they get old and the tone isn't quite as good, they can revoice them. They actually go in and change the wood and do something to it. I'm not sure exactly what the process is. But this tenor is a little harder to play than the bass because of the fact, just simply because of the fact of the finger stretches. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion for anyone who is having a problem of not being able to hold on to an instrument properly. It may be wise, if you're just beginning, to, instead of getting a recorder, to either play a sassoto flute such as this. This is a sassoto. All of mine, except for the big ones, are in black. Or take a penny whistle. Here are two of them. Or this is a conical penny whistle. It goes down to a point. And it does have a wooden plug in the mouthpiece, so it's called a wooden plugged Fipple mouthpiece. It's a mouthful if you say that to somebody. It has a softer tone, so you can see that there is a wooden plug here. Now, the reason for my suggesting, if you have a problem like that, is the fact that there's no tone hole in the back. It's always good to be able to put your thumb in a good stable place and hold it there. But if it does slip because your fingers are short or you don't have a good grip on it, the instruments themselves are narrower, and if your thumb slips, it doesn't matter. You're not going to hurt anything. You may change the balance of the instrument a little, but that's all. But even so, there's a little stretch here. This is one of the larger ones, and there's a little stretch. You might be wise, if you're in that kind of a predicament, to either buy an instrument that's in the key of D, because the finger holes are closer together and there's no thumb in the back, or to get one in the key of E flat, which is about the same size. There's not much difference in them. The hands are, the E flat's a little smaller, and so therefore the fingers are a little closer together. Then of course you have the real small ones. You have, this is the key of G, very tiny. It might be even too small because my fingers cover each other or touch each other. Okay, and the key of F, you see how close they are. G's a little smaller. F. Remember, these instruments that are smaller, the penny whistles, they will play in the key that they were made to play in. You don't have a lot of flexibility. If you're playing something in an instrument that's geared to E flat, that's what it's going to be. You're going to be playing in E flat. Now, I can fudge with them sometimes and get them to play other keys. I know with the C melody, you can also play in the key of D, in the key of F. It is geared for C, but you can play in D, and F, and G, and also in B flat. If you know how to do it, just adding some accidentals, that just takes a little practice to learn that. So you do have a little flexibility, but a lot of the smaller instruments are geared to play in one key, and that is the key that you will be playing in. And you can fudge it a little, but you can't fudge it a whole lot. I didn't show you this one. This is the alto, also of the recorder family, and I can pick it up, put my hands on it, not have any trouble knowing where my fingers go. And remember also the advantage of having a thumb hole is that you slide it down and you can make an octave by half holding that thumb hole. On the little ones that have no thumb hole in the back, they're a little easier to play. You can get octaves on them just by blowing loud up. So this is kind of a long-winded answer to the question, but I think that it'll help out, and I hope you enjoyed it. I always like to bring plenty of instruments for you to see. Hope you enjoyed it, and please join me next time.